idea of how many people are going to show up. Today is going to be kind of loose, where we're going to be able to answer questions that you might have. I thought there was going to be some things that we probably want to talk about, just because there's been some things out on social media. I thought we would just get ahead of exactly where we are. The first topic and I've got Tim. Tim, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are?
Am I on? No. My name's Tim. My name's
Closer to your mouth.
closer to my mouth.
It's not doing it.
Do you want to use this?
Sure. My name's Tim Hippensteel. I'm the new city project manager. I've done this one. Myself at a city council meeting. I just joined the team here, and I've just moved here. I started on the December 1st, and just coming up to speed on all the projects, and looking forward to working with everybody.
And Tim's going to be, he works under Scott. Scott's our city administrator. And Tim is going to be really running our projects and updating the council where we are, interfacing with our outside vendors. He's already working on a training program that we have him on onboarding to get where it's going to be. And then we have Scott Anderson. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I think I know everyone in this room. I think there's maybe one face I haven't seen before here. So obviously, I'm Scott Anderson, the city administrator for the city of Ocean Shores, and as of this June, when that comes, which doesn't feel like today, I've been here for 4 years now.
And then we have Sarah Bisson, and Sarah Bisson is our grant writer, and we're fortunate as a small city to have a grant writer. A lot of the projects that we have are because of her and her ability to work with it. She works extensively with Tim because in order to get the grants, you've got to make sure that you follow the rules. And so she's a very important part, and that's usually why we bring her along, because she has all the detail answers. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I don't have much more to add. I'm Sarah Bisson, grant coordinator for the city, and I have been here for about 5 years, a little over 5 years now. We've brought quite a bit of grant funding into the city during that time, and we're kind of excited to share a status update on this project today.
Okay, so the first topic that I just kind of want to talk about is the tsunami tower. I guess there was an announcement made at the school board meeting of where we are, and the tsunami tower is a project that started in 2018, so well before that I was mayor, and the whole concept behind it was to create a place in case we have a tsunami that people can escape to. The original, it even goes back further. When there was a study, they had a vision of how many different tsunami towers in Ocean Shores.
Over a dozen. I want to say about 14 separate tsunami towers through a feasibility study was conducted, and those were identified as the best options for tsunami evacuation.
And this started right about the time that there was the tsunami that was in Japan with it. And since that time, they've only built one tsunami tower that has been completed. So we would be the second one if it's done. Originally, my thinking on tsunami towers, I was probably like a lot of citizens probably who have talked to me about, is the belief is that there is no need for a tsunami tower because there is no hope and everyone's going to die if a tsunami was to occur. And I kind of was in that belief that what can you do? And then I went to the Tsunami Roadshow, started listening to what people had to say, and realized as an elected official to not have a plan on a potential disaster is not something that an elected official should do. So what are the solutions are? So we looked at multiple, actually Crystal Dingler, the former mayor, looked at multiple options. And really, at that time, there's either a tsunami that goes into where you go into a high ground, which we do not have, create a berm, which Longview looked at, and then they changed the rules that the berm has to be dramatically higher than we have the ability to do it. And then there's a structure, which is what we're working on. During that time that we walked through, that we went through and convinced FEMA to change their policy, because at that time they would not fund anything that happened before a disaster. So getting a grant for this tsunami was the first time that they did something that was pre-disaster. And in fact, I think they call it a pre-disaster grant. With it, we had a concern about what the cost is, and the cost was high. Originally, the original project was about $5 million is what they projected for. The city, on any type of grant, typically the city's got to do some matching money. And we need to do about 15%, so about $700,000 was the city's cost with it. Then, as we were moving forward, then we hit COVID, and COVID stopped basically all grant processes going through, kind of was on the back burner. No work was done from the city point of view towards it. Then fast forward, Crystal passed away, I became mayor, and I inherited. First thing that I did was pick up the phone because the original numbers that we were seeing were dramatically higher than what we projected. So I got on the phone with FEMA, asked them, what was the deal, and they said, well, cost has gone up. And then one of the things that we discovered that the initial estimate from Deegan Cole, they didn't have all the amount that was in there. So obviously, cost overruns. My concern at that time was if Ocean Shores can't get a tsunami tower completed, it's probably not going to be completed anywhere. So we went through that. We ended up, and Sarah was very instrumental, getting additional funding that would help cover the cost of the cost overruns. So with that, we continued on working with Deegan Cole. And then at that time, Shoalwater completed their tsunami tower, and their tsunami tower is about half the size of our tsunami tower. And a couple things that once we went to design that we were told that we couldn't do, they built it without being ADA accessible, which was a surprise to us. But then looking at our design, that ours was not ADA compliable. And obviously, with our citizens and students, ADA is important. So we had to add on the ADA piece of it, which is a significant increase, because instead of steps, you've got to have a circular round part of it. So there was an additional cost to that. And then also, because it's a building, there's building codes. And building codes, which we're still working through, because there are not a lot of tsunami towers out there. And so the tsunami towers building codes are based on our standard building codes. So like typically in a building, your number one concern from a fire safety point of view is the ability to get people out. And of course, in a tsunami tower, your number one priority is to get people in. So with that, so we're working through that, as well as it's an all concrete tower. Our fire codes say that you need to have it sprinklered. So again, we're working on those. So there's a lot of things in there. So as we're working through this, we know that we have a cost overrun. We reach out to OSPI, okay, OSPI, which is the state funding for schools. And they have a grant, or they have actually a lot of money that is to focus on school safety. And so with that, that we called them up and we talked to them. And the whole time that we're on the phone, concerned about cost overrun, concerned about the cost to the citizens of the Ocean Shores and what our options are. So we talk with them and have a very positive conversation with them. And this is an early conversation OSBI is interested in shoring up on the cost overruns that we have to get it done, because it's for safety, and tsunami is what it's labeled as. And so with that, we have we have a quick conversation with the school district, and we talk about what their expectations are. One of the first questions they ask: could we move the tower? And the answer is no, because we've already done all the work on figuring out the soil samples, how deep we need to go, all that type of stuff. So moving the tower is not a possibility. And with grants, you are required to follow whatever the process of the grant is going to be. So obviously it's not. But in looking at the aerial view, that we talk about safety of the children, and we talk about that is there a possibility that we can create a path from the elementary school to the tsunami tower. And if you look at it, we actually have a path that goes partway through from Public Works, and extending it a little bit forward wouldn't be that part of an issue. It would get them to there. But then, the conversation came up of how could I, as a mayor, prioritize children over residents of Ocean Shores. And I will tell you that when we originally did the grant and looked at it, that we factored in the school as being a priority of getting people in there. And if a tsunami was to hit, the tsunami is going to hit, and whoever gets to the tower is going to be, what is it, 20 or 10 minutes?
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Is the estimate.
15 minutes walking is the area that we're looking at covering is what the grant's for. And so the school could be in session or not, and access to the tower is going to be based on, there's going to be basically a kind of a break glass type of thing. I don't know if it's glass, but anyway, that you would open up whatever this thing that would allow you access to get into it. So anyone, we don't have to wait for someone at the school, we don't have to wait for someone from the police or the fire to be there to open it up, and so that's where it's going to be. But again, the part with the school, for whatever we're going to do from a trail, is early on discussions that we're going through there. We have not completed actually our final design. We don't really know what the number is going to be. I am very focused on having a bare bones evacuation tower that meets the needs that we have. And so far, I have not come back to the citizens and asked for any additional money. And we've been working on getting funding from other places in order to get that. Now, I do realize there's a good portion of the citizens of Ocean Shores that believe that we should never build a tower at all. I disagree with that. I think that it is the responsibility of the city to have a plan when it comes to a natural disaster. And so far, the vertical evacuation tower is the only option that we have found out there that there's any funding for. I know people have talked about getting the pods.
Yes.
It hasn't been done any place. There's no funding for it. Yes, go ahead.
Actually, and I mean, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
I'd
go
just like
ahead.
to back up a little bit. This project was presented for those newcomers to the city, to the public in November of 2018, alongside of city staff, school administration was there, and Washington State EMD. And through conversations with Washington State EMD, they do not consider tsunami pods as a viable solution to tsunami evacuation. They do not, this is specifically from Maximilian Dixon at Washington State EMD, they will not go searching for one pod floating in the water when they have a conglomerate group of people to save, or large group of people to save. So it is not a viable option per Washington EMD, and it would not be funded through a grant. So this was discussion that was had in November of 2018 when we chose site selection, involved conversation with school administration. And just to back up for the demographics served, FEMA is actually provides a calculation for the you have to perform a benefit cost analysis. What is the benefit to your population versus the amount of money that you're asking for? And What they do is they provide a calculation as to who within your geography can reach that site within a 15-minute walking at the slowest pace, so basically your most disabled person, at a quarter-mile radius, a mile radius, and a half-mile radius. So it goes out like this. And who do they think will be able to actually physically get to that tower? So the prioritization of prior administration with the prior mayor was to protect some of our most vulnerable demographic sitting in the middle of the city. And that is how the school population was counted. And they're within that quarter-mile radius, and then it reaches out to a half mile, and then a mile radius. So it's not something that the city determines. It's something that we actually have to use a consultant who is familiar with those FEMA calculations to be able to assess who can benefit from that tower. And our benefit cost analysis came out in at over 14 points. And the reason that is significant is because you qualify for this FEMA funding if you score a benefit cost analysis of 1 or greater. So we have a significant benefit to this very small tower, and really it is small because we're only considering 800 people. Through the benefit cost analysis, we assessed that approximately 800 people would be able to make it to this tower in time.
In the 800, but if we add more people, it would be basically double the size.
Yes, and that's per FEMA. FEMA requires that you have 10 10 square feet per person. So 800 people would be an 8,000 square foot tower. Realistically, it will support quite a bit more, especially if we are faced an emergency. I'm not going to insist that I have 10 feet of radius around me. We're going to pack them in there as much as we possibly can.
Okay, so that's kind of where we are. I mean, there's nothing that's been committed that we're going forward. The OSPI grant is from the state, and so it's a pass-through through our school district. So the school district, there's no cost to the school district, there's no cost to the city, whatever that funding is, and it's based on a grant that the legislature have already put that in place, and it's for safety and tsunami within the state of Washington. So before we move on, you guys got questions on it? Yes.
I wanted to find out where, I did some studies since you guys were bringing up the tsunami thing. I'm from Hawaii. The other place that has a lot of tsunami and hurricanes is Florida. They don't have towers. We don't have towers. But I know somebody said you have mountains, but still that's not enough. It's 9,000 feet, 9,000 foot elevation where I come from. That's still not enough if you have a big tsunami. Growing up, I was involved in tsunamis. They didn't get that far. The thing is, I found out the school there. Where on the elementary school are you planning to put the towers?
It's on the corner of the Public Works there. So if you actually drive by, there's the gate and there's an access road that drives behind there, and it'll be right there on that corner.
Because there are children in the school that are unable to walk. They're in wheelchairs.
Yes.
The other
Well, and that was one of the priorities of being an ADA and then getting a flat surface for them to evacuate.
that is good. But and then the pod thing, when the guy, I wasn't here. I just came into town I think it was 20. But anyway, they said that individual people would be able to invest in their own pods.
Yeah, no, and that is an option. It's just from what it was pitched before was why doesn't the city do pods for everybody versus a tsunami tower? And the problem that we have is there's no funding that pays for any of that. So that would be out of the city's fund in order to do that. And that's the reason why to us it wasn't an option.
So we could throw it out to the citizens of Ocean Shores because we have 7,000 people.
Yeah, well, the citizens of Ocean Shores, I think there's an ad I hear on KSW every morning about it. So I don't know anyone personally that's bought one, but yeah, that's an option.
Yeah, there's a couple people that did. And it's almost like one of those underground shelter things.
Mm-hmm.
And The other thing that I wanted to find out is what's gonna happen to our senior citizens that are in the care home by the community center? It's gonna take them more than 15 minutes to get there.
That is why, and again, maybe if you would like to research where those tsunami towers were proposed to be, the 2014 Safe Haven project was the driving force. It was not the city that conducted that study. It was actually at the state level, and several stakeholders were involved. And they didn't just assess our community, but they assessed several communities, and it included Washington State Emergency Management.
In Florida, what they ended up doing was building homes now with all the hurricanes and tsunamis that they experienced. The design of the homes are different. There's no restriction when the water comes in. A lot of them are circular or cone shaped. So, like it prevents a lot of destruction.
I think that they are addressing the International Building Code to consider, because we've had several conversations about the building code. It's posed several restrictions within this project itself. First of all, sprinkler system was not something that was considered to begin with, but it needs to be assessed, and also ADA compliance. And that is all part of the federal funding requirements and the International Building Code. But they may not be able to reach from the senior citizen home, but that is probably another area that we need to consider a tower. And that's what Washington State and the federal agency are willing to fund at this time. I have lived here for 25 years. I'm a graduate of North Beach High School, so this is my hometown. And I'm really excited to see a relationship be established between the school district and the city in a positive light. This is something we can absolutely come together and create something that can set precedents for coastal communities up and down the coast. And OSPI has their own, so that's the Office of Superintendent for Public Instruction. They have their own allocation set aside for specifically this purpose for our coastal towns. And it's not just us as a driving force. Washington State Emergency Management is working directly with whomever addresses the International Building Code and FEMA and the Office of Public Instruction to ensure that they can support communities throughout our state. So we would be one of the first to actually utilize this funding and leverage it, because I think that the expense was far larger than was ever anticipated.
And a lot of the people here, why they had come back and said, why are we doing this? Why are you building the towers? It's because some of them did research. And they found out how long it was when the last tsunami hit Ocean Shores. That's the reason why.
Well, no, and I am totally, that's kind of the thought that I had originally, because I hope that this tsunami tower is never used, and I think that it's important. But at the same token, that I don't want to be a person that had an opportunity to start addressing safety and welfare of the citizens, especially when we've got the money, we can proceed forward and say it's not going to happen, and then it happens. I think there's a responsibility to get there, and I agree that this is not the answer to everything. It's a start, and we've got to start somewhere. And I've already got my fire and police that we're reworking on our emergency procedures if we have an issue, because it is a concern. Because I don't think you're going to be able to get from here to Aberdeen. The road's going to be gone. But then at the same time, if it is a 10-foot wave, there's a huge survivability part of it. But if there's a 100-foot wave, then probably not. But again, so that's why we're working on it. I am very concerned about the cost. That my staff can tell you that every call that I have with a state representative is about the cost, and if you're really serious about fixing this, you got to figure out how small cities are going to get these things done. Because I am very frustrated that the numbers they gave us do not match what we're seeing, and we are that every day I ask Deacon Cole that like they had wooden rail, nice looking wooden rails. I go, I don't need that. I want a bare bone piece of equipment that will make it work, because once we get one up, then we have an idea of what it's going to cost, and other cities can follow us. But that's where we're at. But I'm very concerned about the cost. Yes.
You know, you're talking about FEMA telling you in your grant proposal that it had to be a 10 by 10 per person area. So is that based on capacity for the platform? So my question would be, are you letting them know you're gonna jam more people in there? Like you just said, you know, oh, we'll put as many as we possibly can. Is there a weight requirement or?
It will be seismically structured to basically support because it's a steel structure. It's for the quality of the people within that space.
But do they know that you're planning on packing in more?
We had several discussions. I
So
mean,
how
I'm not
many more?
planning on it because realistically, only 800 people will be able to arrive because that's how our calculations were based on
And that's
FEMA's
based on a 10
calculations.
by 10 space around them?
Yes.
But you're saying that if a tsunami did hit, you would allow a lot more people?
Yeah, we won't be up there counting. I mean,
Well, how do you stop people at
Well,
a certain point?
first of all, the 10 by 10 is.
Have you thought that out? I mean,
Well, and again, we've had the conversations, and they're the ones that have said, well, you can get more. It's not a load capacity, it's a building code part of it. So
a weight
it-
requirement?
Yeah, so if you have like this convention center at 10 by 10, and you got, this is how many people you can have in there. You know, tsunami's going to hit quick, it's going to come up there. We're not going to have somebody down there counting how many people on there. I mean, our goal is to get the people on there, and you know that, we think it's 1,600 if we max it out, right? You know, and that's a lot of people.
And that, the weight?
Yeah, the weight's not an issue.
And I'll just say the other reason that they wanted that distance between individuals is because FEMA has told us, you know, it may be 72 hours, quite realistically, before they're able to mount a successful rescue operation. So obviously having the ability to
Right.
kind of stand and move your elbows is one thing. But again, we don't know, realistically, if there's a tsunami, it's going to be something much smaller in scale, but because of based on where we are, we can't guarantee that, right? I mean, we, as adults, this is what I always say about the thing about the children and putting it near the school and all that. As adults, we all made a conscious decision intellectually to move to a sandbar in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where a tsunami can happen. And the only people who really didn't get the chance to make that decision were children because they didn't get a say. They didn't get a vote in whether or not they came here. So I mean, I think just speaks as a public policy mechanism. It's important we look out for the interests of that generation that didn't get a say in whether or not to come here.
But FEMA knows that it would be 1,600 people as opposed to 800.
Yeah. So I've got it right there, and then back there, and then over here.
I have two questions. So with students and staff, how many are at the school?
I don't recall the population.
I'm new here, so I don't really know. I know it's a fairly small school. I have seen it. The other question I have is, does OSPI have that money, or is it somehow tied up in the general fund and it has to be approved by the ledge every time the budget comes
Nope,
up?
it's all there right now.
It's already there? That's a good thing.
Okay. And we'll find out what the population, or what the number of the school district. I know it's less than the capacity that we have.
I just know it's less than the high school, and the high school is 450. So it's significantly less than that. So.
Okay, Jan?
When we had that group come through a couple of years ago here and we sat and listened to them, their estimate of getting help in was, I think, 7 days to up to 3 weeks because of the road conditions when they talked about it. And our concern, even if it is only 7 to 10 days, my thought is that it would be better to have medical and water supplies up there and that would help us in doing this 10-day event at least, because they're going to be all over the state on this coastline helping.
Yeah, and we will have medical and water supplies and communication as part of what's going to be on there. Our conversation with FEMA, that their vision of a tsunami hits, they're going to send helicopters out looking to see whatever they're going to be looking at, where survivors are. If you got all these people on a tsunami tower, that's where they're going to be focused on with it. But yeah, there's water, radio stuff, yeah.
It is not a part of the grant itself because it can't support that cost, but it does pay for the storage lockers for emergency blankets, emergency supplies. There will be the infrastructure for radio control, so whomever is on the tower can call out mayday, so to speak, from that area. And we plan on looking for alternative methods of funding, whether it's through community drives or another grant that may potentially supply those emergency supplies. But we will have to have a retention schedule on those supplies because, as you know, those water packets are only good for so long, etc.
Okay.
Are those above ground too?
Yes. Yeah.
So they're not on,
No, everything, so we don't have a vision, but basically it's kind of like a pyramid. You're going to go up, there's going to be a round part to get there. And then you're going to go up, and then there's 2 levels that you're going to have. So there's a covered level and then there's an open level that we'll be able to put on there.
Well, in order to fit it within the footprint that we needed to, so we did not have to encroach on any wetlands or environmental impacts, we kept the space within an acre, and so that's why we needed to split it between 2 levels, and so it was more cost effective to build up than build out. And the way that it will work is based on UW tsunami modeling and all of the geotechnical engineering, those both should be above what the estimated big one is supposed to be.
why would they worry about wetlands and everything like that if it's gonna be a huge tsunami that's gonna wipe the whole damn place out?
I mean, that makes sense for the seismic event, but we have federal regulations that are aside from this particular grant at a federal level that don't allow, federal and state level, that don't allow us to encroach wetlands without proper mitigation. And so it's a different regulation than what is specific to this grant.
And I agree with you. It would make total sense. Why are you worried about saving people's life and it's wetland? But this is just what we do, you know, and the I guess I'm a politician, but people in Olympia make rules that make no sense a lot of times for us. So we're battling it. But it's the same thing of the codes of having a sprinkler system on a concrete structure. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me, but we're working on that. So Richard?
So a couple of points I'd like to make. And one, I followed this since the very beginning, and we keep hearing about the Ocean Shore Tsunami Tower. This is the first of 14 tsunami towers. And we've got to build the first one before we can build the 14th one. And each step we will learn and change to based on what we learn. The other point that I want to make is several years ago when this was a big issue, out of curiosity, I started my stopwatch, got dressed, and walked to see how far I could get in 15 minutes. I live 2.5 blocks north of the community club, and I got all the way down to the bed and breakfast with the brass, is that what it is, a brass roof. Now, the ground wasn't shaking and there were no trees across the road, but it was enlightening to me how far, without running, just walking at a normal pace, how far you can actually get in 15 minutes. So I applaud the city for the steps that you've taken and for the foresight that you've invested in this. And I agree with you, John, that we would be remiss in not making some kind of plan and mitigating the plan as we learn. So,
All right, okay. Jen?
So I kind of have 2 questions. The first one is you brought up at the beginning social media, and that's involving the OSPI grant, is it not?
Yeah, well, the piece that was shared with me, I just got a screenshot from somebody, said that it alluded to the fact that the school district was it was money coming from the school district, which is not correct.
So that is what was said during that video. It was said it was coming from the school district and they were going to share it with the city, is what was said during the video.
So do you want to clarify?
Yes, so what will happen is the contract will be made between, so once we receive our final figures from the schematic design, which we are anticipating at any time, because OSPI's money at the state level is first come, first serve. Now we're shovel ready, so we're hoping, once we get that schematic design, so we're hoping we can get right in there. The school district wants to establish an MOA with the city to ensure that, first of all, they're not required to maintain the structure. They probably can't afford that, but we have already accepted maintenance of the building or the facility when we submitted for the grant. That was part of the stipulation to receive the grant funding. So what will happen is the school district will apply to OSPI for the remaining cost difference, and OSPI is willing to fund it. But what happens is the school district becomes a pass-through agency. It's very similar to how the federal agency will pass through to the state, and then they pass through to municipalities. So the school district has the potential to make some income in regard to this because they will actually be administering the funds. So they will apply to OSPI. OSPI will give them a grant, including the administrative fee. The administrative fee could be retained by the North Beach School District because the city will have to submit our invoices on a monthly basis to the school district. The school district will pass it through to OSPI, retain their administrative fee, and then send our payment reimbursement back to us.
Okay. Good. You had a follow-up question?
Quick second question is, you're talking about people being in here and cramming up to 1,600 people in here. What about restroom type thing? So, that is my one thought on that. If you're cramming 1,600 people in.
Bring a bucket when you
So,
There'll be a lot of water.
Yeah, I know it's in there, but it's not like a rest room. I mean, you're going to have, like you're out camping.
I think so, or maybe when you're out on a boat, you know, you just kind of.
Right.
I'm not sure. Unfortunately, it was not part of this consideration. And the reality of it being a plumbed facility, or even that water being holding pressure to do that, we wouldn't have that ability.
No.
I think it is something that we do have to consider for sanitation reasons, but even if.
yes, that was my concern.
Yes.
I'm not asking you to
Okay.
ask
Yeah.
questions.
So I've got Susan, and I think you had a question, okay, so.
Thank you. My question is different. My question is, what does the city do, plan, think on a daily basis for any kind of disaster for us? What do we have? Do we have supplies somewhere? What is the process for any other kind of emergency? Losing power for 7 days, 3 weeks, whatever else it happens to be, the truck is on strike, no food coming in. What do you do about that?
And so we do have a plan. In fact, we just talked about it on Tuesday to follow up to, because we always do a recap after each of our, like say a power outage or whatever. We have generators on all of our key buildings, you know, so we have a generator here, we have over at police, we have fire, we have a small one over at accounting for our servers. We have food, excess food that is here. We have, is it 30 beds at the convention center? I think we have 30 or whatever out there. We have we have notebooks that have where we go through our call list. You know, when we start calling and making a determination of whether or not we're going to open up the convention center or not open the convention center. During the shakeout, we had a practice run with our fire and police of evacuating the city of where we're going to go. We're not, in my mind, we're not at the level that we need to be, but we're working on it. And I've tasked each of my departments to get back to me by the end of the month, a list of what they think from a emergency procedure, what should our protocol be? Because like obviously fire is going to be a lot different than our accounting or our finance department. And we're working with emergency services, and we are actually applying for a grant that will help us put together an emergency plan for us. But that's what we're working on. But we do have food supplies, we do have generators, we do have a protocol if power's been out for X amount and the temperature is a certain thing to open up there. The one thing that I am very aware of that we have not come up with a solution for, and I'm trying to figure out what that's going to be, is those with pets. I mean, because I know in my family I have a dog. And I would be hard pressed to leave my dog behind, which I would say would be almost anyone who has a pet, and so that's our concern of what could we do. I don't know, is there something that we could do at the Lions Club or whatever? That's the one piece that we have not figured out, but we're working on. We're working on it, and I'm trying to find some other cities of what their protocols are. I mean, obviously I can't have dogs, running around because you got more dogs, but there's got to be an answer. And if when you go out and talk to people, it seems like almost every house in Ocean Shores has either a dog or a cat. So it's a huge issue that we need to just deal with it. But I don't have an answer yet.
Follow-up question, and that is, so the media, that our CERT team has disbanded. Can you talk to us about what's happening with?
Well, I can't, because I'm not responsible for CERT.
But do you
so
know anything?
I know that there's some disagreements that are having. I've reached out to, well, first of all, and I don't know if people realize it, the CERT team is accountable to emergency management, who is accountable to the sheriff. So the sheriff is in charge, and of course we have a brand new sheriff that just got sworn in, and I don't think he's even involved in whatever is going on. But it's something that we're working on. We believe the CERT team is a very important part of our organization. We're hoping that things get worked out. But right now it's the CERT team and the sheriff that are working on things with it. And then you had a question?
Yeah, my name's Robert. And what is the maintenance cost going to be on this? I've worked on wind towers and underwater wells for over a decade. So there's a lot of things that have to go into this metal, or else we'll end up with something that will just fall over. So what is the projection of our maintenance cost?
Well, the projection,
I don't have the figure. It might be published under the tsunami evacuation grant application because it was part of that grant application. But we did have to assess the cost, and annually what will happen is we will go and do spot checks to ensure there's no erosion or cover up little chips inside the paint because we're using marine grade paint on the facility. And afterwards, I believe it's every 5 or 10 years, I'd have to follow up on that where we need an entire recoating. And we had to reassess that cost and accept the responsibility of maintenance when we submitted the application. And that was through council and everything when we accepted the award in 2018, and then we received the award in 2020.
But you bring up a really good point, because that's one of the concerns that I have as the mayor, that in Ocean Shores historically, we do not do a good job of working on what do we need to do to maintain our buildings, etc. And especially being on the ocean, the impact that you have from the salt air is dramatically more than elsewhere. One of the things that as mayor and the council has approved is a capital maintenance plan, which we're going to outsource for them to give us a recommendation of what we need to do with all of our pieces of equipment. One of the things that will be our project manager's responsibility is following up on those type of things. And my hope is that all these things that we have that we built into a calendar, so on a regular basis of something simple, do you check the generators every October to make sure that they're working, to have that in the plan. So I'm very aware of that. If we build this, it's very important for us to maintain it, because it's cheaper to maintain than to rebuild.
And just because, I was going to say, you don't even know this, but Tim was aware. We talked with John Wagner today, and we were creating a schedule to check all the generators in the city on a quarterly basis.
Right.
So that happened this morning.
Right, you had a follow?
Back to your thing is the underwater wells that we built were good for 100 years. So again, the towers, the wind towers, don't have to be touched for 30 years. So unless we're climbing up and down on it, that's the things. There's a lot of things that go into it, and when you work with oil wells, you only get one chance, or else you end up with some of the disasters. My second question is this broadcast system that we have, She's lived in Hawaii, I've lived in Hawaii, I've lived in tornado zones. Why don't we have something loud enough to get your attention?
So,
If you have your TV on, this broadcast system that we have doesn't work.
well, understand the broadcast system we have is for outside.
Correct.
And the vision is that that if you're inside the house, that you would get the warning the warning on your phone. Or on the emergency radios that you have.
Correct, but like I said, I mean, I've been in, where walls have built for tornadoes, you can still hear the siren, and this thing goes off once a month. And if you're just not completely tuned into it, it goes right past you. And I just don't understand, it's just, horns or whatever, why you can't beef that thing up, to at least give a blast for attention, and then, you can hear it.
Well, if there was a tsunami tower, those towers would be going constantly on. I mean, there would be a very shrill one.
It's gonna have sound on it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but again, those are not under my control. I mean, it's from the city. So, Nikki?
A quick note, the tests that they do every month with those towers, the tones that they do, they put out more of a pleasant tone, so people don't panic as much. When we actually have an emergency, the tone that goes out is a lot higher, more volume to it.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, because that's what I thought. Well,
Yeah.
geez, you're gonna
They're just trying not to panic people, especially you got tourists, around anywhere in the county that, they don't want to be panicked, so they put out the more pleasant tone to it.
So, did I see it, your voice? Yeah.
I just had a question, because the school's going to be given the money, because it's actually the grant going to the schools, that's helping. But now they can't, can they use it on different things, or it has to be just that?
Yes, this was a state appropriation to OSPI specifically for this purpose, for hazard mitigation. So they cannot utilize that funding for anything else. Now, their administrative fee will be revenue, and that will be up to them, and they are within their right to spend it, however they do business. No, the tower money cannot be utilized for anything other than what we apply for it for.
And administration, that'd be a set fee, where it'd be at?
Typically, when you're dealing with the state, it's either a 5 or 10% administrative fee on top of the cost of the project.
And
that would also pay for the grant writer at the school, to administer the reports and.
I will be doing a majority of that as the sub-recipient.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so we would prepare a report for the school to pass on, but it should reimburse her time, the business manager's time that she has to spend, or whomever her staff is, to do the work to reimburse, or to ask for the reimbursement, and then submit required paperwork. But a lot of that will come from our level.
And Jen, did I say you had another question?
My question was, when he asked that we cannot, even when it goes off, I can't understand what they're saying, and we stand outside on the porch. So, although it's a pleasant sound, it makes me nervous because I don't know what it's saying. And I am on an emergency alert, I get that anyway, but when it goes off, it concerns me.
Okay. Susan?
I'd just like to tell everyone that they do have a program through emergency management, and it's to report on the sirens. My husband and I are volunteers for that. Some of the ham radio operators are also volunteers. I will pass along what I've heard today, and maybe we can get a comprehensive report put together, maybe something through your city chat, whatever you could do, and get the input from people in what areas they're not hearing it. That's the information that we need to get back to the organization so that they know. But we still need volunteers, so if you're anywhere close to a siren and would like to volunteer, let me know and I can put you in touch with them. That's the only way they know if it's being heard.
Right, right. No, I think that'd be good as we work on our emergency preparedness plan. Maybe have people come out and talk to us about what's going on. Yeah.
I think it's also a good time because we talked about emergency supplies, and I think that this is a larger conversation with the entire community, but remember that we need at least a 72-hour go pack individually to carry your water, your food, your supplies for you, your family, and your pets. So, we'll try and supply the bare minimum as much as possible on the tower through community efforts, but it's imperative that you have your go pack.
Okay, yes.
There's enough warning put out by the federal government when a tsunami has been generated or the possibility of a tsunami to be generated from the earthquakes, wherever it is. And the Coast Guard will be out there looking. And they're not the only ones that help during disasters. The Navy, the Army, all the military people will be out there. I know because Kauai was hit. The middle of the ocean. We had a submarine, a nuclear submarine there to pump and give us electricity. So we're not going to be left alone. You have to survive it first.
Right, right. Any other questions on tsunami tower before we move on?
I just have another question, because he seems to be pretty knowledgeable on a lot of this stuff. Do we have somebody that's knowledgeable when they're reading through all the requirements and?
We have, and he's mentioned Deegan Kolb, so we went through a procurement process. They created our preliminary design, and Deegan Kolb is our architect and engineer for the design of this structure. So they work closely with our building inspector and Washington State EMD, which is the Emergency Management Division, and they are the ones that actually built the Shoalwater Bay Tower as well. So they're about as knowledgeable as you can get here on the West Coast in regard to these structures.
Lillian?
Well, this is just kind of off the wall question, but will there ever be, will anyone entertain the possibility that this tower could be used for other purposes? Or is it going to be strictly tsunami?
Strictly tsunami, only that we had talked about. We talked about it, but the cost is so great that to do because Westport's looking at doing a multi-purpose one. I have no idea how they're going to get that thing built for what they're looking at, because we're looking at bare bones with it. You know, our number one is get it done, see what it is, and then once we have it, then we can figure out what else that we could do.
So we're talking about further down the line.
We can't.
Yeah.
We cannot. This is federal funding specifically for pre-disaster mitigation, and so it is only for that purpose. Okay. If we wanted to utilize it, let's say we wanted to build a convention center and make it seismically retrofitted and include an evacuation here. They would support the seismic retrofitting and the evacuation tower above it, but they would not support the cost of this itself. So they will only share in the percentage utilized for the emergency.
I'll ask my question 10 years from now.
Well, and again, things continue to change. I mean, when we started doing this, they changed the rules dramatically. I mean, so what is today? Who knows what's going to be tomorrow? Right. And especially early warning. And maybe pods will be the future. Maybe you can get in the pod and it will levitate you off and whatever. So I don't know. Anything that is today might not be the same thing tomorrow. So you just think about cell phones with it. Susan.
Slightly different subject, but on erosion and building codes. We have a lot of areas in ocean shores that are being impacted by the erosion, particularly down on Marine Drive. Are we ever going to change our building codes and requirements? Are we just going to keep letting people build there? I know we have the shoreline master plan, but we've got another building that's just being erected right in the area where the waves are now about 2 feet from the house.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I know that part of just wetland mitigation is actually forcing people to build further away from the erosion. I as the mayor actually have not had the council or not the planning commission look at do we need to move things back from it. Erosion is an issue, just like if you look at, you know, it seems like every season you look at on the TV, there'll be somebody in California that has this beautiful view and it's going into the ocean. So some of it is, you know, it's like, you know, you got to be aware of where you're building. So we haven't gone that because actually my more focus is, you know, of one, fixing erosion. I mean, that we are working with the Corps to work on the jetty repair. You know, that right now, and I'm very frustrated with our, it sounds like I'm a broken record. I'm frustrated with our elected officials in Olympia, you know, and because they've made rules that make it difficult for Ocean Shores to protect our erosion. I mean, either soft armor or hard armor. You know, that they put in rules that are good for Puget Sound, but not good if you're on the ocean. And with sea rising, it becomes more and more difficult, but they are taking away our ability to fight it. Now, the good thing on our last king tides, that our jetty tubes have done extremely well, better than I thought they were going to be. But it's something that we need to look at. We've got erosion study that's going on right now. We're, what, 3/4 done?
We're only about 25%.
Oh, 25%, okay. Wishful thinking.
But that's not for private property, that is strictly for, and that's not what the grant was intended for, and there's no cost share, but it's to assess what would happen should the bay for Damon Point, near Damon Point, reach Marine View Drive and enter into our freshwater ways. So it's not for private property assessment, but will start giving us an idea of what that erosion is going to look like.
And one of the things that we've been working with the Quinault Nation, because they're a big landholder that is losing land with it, of what can be done on their part of it. And my personal feeling is if we get the jetty fixed, that will help solve some of the problems, because it moves what the plan is, that they would raise where the jetty is, raise it higher. I think we're up, I think it's 10 feet higher than what it is. Compress the rocks, because right now what's happening with the jetty is there's opening up, so there's more water that's going through. When there's more water going through, there's more erosion. The studies that we did, in fact, we just reviewed the study that was done when we actually presented to the state legislature today, that it will cause the erosion to reduce, and in theory should start moving some sand over towards the backside of where the sewage treatment plant is. So it would potentially impact things in a positive way if we got that fixed. But you know, we're probably at least a year away before they start doing anything with it, and then it's probably like a 2-3 year project where we're going. But again, erosion is important. I feel for anyone that is in that zone, I personally would be building there because I've just see, you know, where all of a sudden things are great and wonderful. Like if you look at the geotubes, you know, that whole thing was gone when we put the geotubes, and then in the summer, all the sand comes back, and in the winter, it all leaves from us. So we're working on it. We haven't done anything from a zoning, just because they haven't committed to, but prior to me being mayor, they took pieces of property that are not buildable. You know, they did that because of those concerns. I don't know if that answered your question.
Just the fact that you've given us information on what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, Nanny, then Jay.
The sewer system, how is it protected against a tsunami or a hurricane?
It's not. I mean, it's as best as it could be. I mean, that we have it. It's raised up. We are constantly monitoring it. Of our main things that we have in Ocean Shores, it's the one that I have the most concern about. You know, because it is the most affected from an erosion point of view. But if there's a tsunami, number one priority is citizens, saving citizens' lives, and then infrastructure is second, you know, and I'm assuming if it's a major one that, you know, we're 50 feet, we will not have a working sewer system, and I don't know if there's a solution to be able to be prepared for that.
But we are considering our freshwater source. I mean, we just submitted another grant application through FEMA for the Building Resilience Infrastructure for Communities, I believe it is. It's the BRIC application, and that's to seismic retrofit our 3 million gallon fresh waterways, or freshwater reservoir, excuse me. We're trying to, but that seems to be needed before the infrastructure for the sewer treatment plant.
Jane?
Okay, this is off topic, just a question I have for you is, so going forward, we all know that there's issues with the police station. I was wondering, has there been any discussion on getting a committee of citizens and council members together to discuss some viable economical solutions and ideas?
Okay, so my first step is, because I heard loud and clear from the citizens that they don't want to pay for it. So I understand that. We have a Public Works Committee, and the Public Works Committee is going to be, meeting sometime later this month. I'm not exactly sure when. We're going to talk about what they want to do. I don't know. I really don't know from the citizens' point of view if the citizens want us to do anything with the police station.
So I would like to correct your statement. I don't think voting down the bond meant people didn't want to do anything with the police station. It was the cost. And from several people that I have talked to, several people have very good, viable, economical ideas that they've checked into, done research on. And so that is why I'm trying to push to get some community involved with ideas and everything.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah. I personally don't. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I believe that because ultimately it's going to be the council that's going to make the decision if we do anything or we don't do anything, that the Public Works Committee look at it, vet it, decide what we want to do in the next step. And so that's where we are next.
Yeah, I just don't understand why there's not more community involvement. There's so many ideas out there. Why we can't get a committee together to help with those ideas.
Yeah, well, no, that's what these meetings are for, with it. So, yes, Susan.
That takes me into my next question, Community Policing Advisory Board that I brought up, and I got a number of people who sent in applications. That is one of the things, one of the topics that they do talk about, and it's why I brought it forward. Can you tell us where you are with that? Are you likely to approve some of our applications and get that advisory board going? Because I think that's exactly what Jane is saying.
Right now, no, I am not moving forward on it, because right now when I look at what we currently have, it is a board that requires a lot of people that because it has I think 2 members from the high school, it has 2 business. Huh?
Did you not get those
No,
applications?
no.
Okay.
No. So, but my number one priority, my biggest concern is taking energy away from our police department. Right now, we're understaffed when we're on the police. We're having difficulty of covering our shifts, and my concern is the safety of the citizens, and I'm really concerned about taking the direction of some larger cities have made with police advisory board that recommended defunding the police.
And so that's what you're worried about. You think that we put forward that idea because we wanted to defund the police?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm concerned that right now I have a hard time finding we are having a hard time finding police officers.
But that's why we want to help. That's what Jane is saying.
I understand that. And that building a police station is different than having a police committee that is giving direction to the police department.
But I don't believe that it's giving direction. The idea is what Jane was saying, why we petitioned you with this to do it.
You petitioned me. You petitioned me, yes.
Citizens want to participate.
You want to be on it.
Easier
Yes.
For you, we know they don't have the staff. We didn't say no on Prop 1 because we didn't want a police station. We know that there are other ways to go about doing it. That's what we want to do. The job's hard enough. We want to be able to participate and do that.
Okay. Ken?
I just want to clarify, the committee that I am talking about and that I want, there's input about what we can do as far as structure-wise and everything. It has nothing to do with defunding. It has to do with coming to a common economical, viable solution for both the city and the police department, or the citizens and the police department.
No, I totally understand what you would like is different than what Susan would like.
I'm not looking for defunding the police. My goodness, that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. And if you are responsible for putting that out into the community, that is what I'm intending to do. If you read the description of what the Community Policing Advisory Board is all about, one of the things it talks about is a structure for the police department. It was an immediate thing that came up. It was something we've had on the books in the municipal code for years and years and years. It appears that there is just a fear of us putting forward some ideas, and yet you are the one that says, give me your ideas. We're trying to give you ideas, and you're saying, no, you just want to defund the police. Please come back down off that high horse.
Susan, I'm not on the high horse, and I did not say that that's what you said. I said I had a concern that in other cities, it has not been a positive thing. But I think that we need to rework, I think we need to look at it and rework that. Have the council take a look at what they want to do.
It's not up to the council, they're your boards, you're the one that puts the people on. That's why I talk directly to you, not to the council. We don't need to belabor it.
Okay.
There are other people who have different questions.
I've got, Sarah, do you have something to say?
I think on the board specifically, I think that board has been inactive for so many years that it needs like a complete overhaul before it's established. It doesn't have, as you said, it is the mayor's board. It doesn't have good bylaws. It doesn't have a good strategic plan that the city has put out that we would love citizens like what Jane's speaking of. That's perfect. I think it needs a complete overhaul before the city can willfully establish it again with 5 members and the city, and how does that all look? It needs some direction, and that has to be given by the mayor and probably with the input of city council and what they look for their future at the police department. And I only say that because every board I'm a part of, one way or another.
Okay.
So.
Catherine, did you have your hand up? No? Yes. Yeah, Nancy.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I think in tandem with what Jane is talking about, that
Up until 2008, I worked for Home Depot and was involved with designing and opening 1,100 stores.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could have a police station designed and built here for around $4 million. I may be dreaming, I don't know. But I'll be at your service, or whoever's service, to complete a set of architectural plans that I believe will be approved by the state or whoever, and we can go from there, John. So
Okay.
I'm stepping forward and saying,
Yeah.
I'm also willing to raise funds for the police station so that it doesn't fall on all of the citizens here.
Okay. I got you on my phone.
Okay.
Okay. Lillian.
I noticed 2 things in the campaign that people didn't hear, and that may have been our error in not being able to get that word out. A lot of people were, what's wrong with the police station? There wasn't a general knowledge in the community of the, hideous conditions that our policemen are working in. And the other one was a complete disbelief that the architectural firm was actually going to involve in the community in the physical design. And they were going to take input, and they were going to and somehow we didn't get that information out. And for that, I apologize. But fear took over this time around.
Yeah, well, and again, as mayor, I get better and better all the time, because if I make a mistake, I understand it. We took the police design that was done before I became mayor. One of the things that is a very frustrating part of mine is when government tells you it's going to cost that, and then you got this huge cost overrun. I wanted to be honest with the people of this is what the cost is going to be. I wasn't in part of any of the design or the selection of the company that actually designed the project, so it was already going on, and they're probably kind of along the same lines that we're kind of somewhat dealing with maybe our design with the Tsunami Tower, is they want to make it look real pretty, and Ocean Shores is a great town, but when it comes to city buildings, we just need the basics. Can we meet all the requirements the state requires us? And then of course the state isn't helping us, because the state's making it more and more difficult to make the requirements. They put these rules in and there's no money for them. And in a small town, it makes it more and more difficult. But no, I hear loud and clear on the police station, and that's why I haven't been anxious to pull it back out, because it got slaughtered. Yep. I mean, and for a lot of different reasons. And it was from either design, the cost, or whatever it's going to be. So we'll look at it, and having citizens as a part of it, I think will be a great thing, because one thing that makes me better as a mayor, because I listen to you, I understand what your guys' frustrations are, and then we talk with the staff. How do we make it better? I mean, my chief, she's making the current police station work, and she doesn't want the Taj Mahal. She wants a basic thing, that she has an interview room, it's safe, and it's workable for her officers with it. So I hear you. I hear all of you with it on that. Yes?
I just wanted to bring something up from your comment. You said we don't have enough staff. Why doesn't the city use interns? Is there something, these are perfectly good people trying to learn all of these places that basically they do research and... We do.
In fact,
I never see any ads for interns.
Because most of the interns that we have, like right now, we have a person that is working on erosion with it, because most of them are placed by colleges.
Okay, that's all I meant. I just never have seen any ads on it, but it definitely beefs up the...
And we do have like summer help as well, that we do hire for public works and things along those lines.
Right.
But even that, you'd be surprised. And they're good paying jobs, and they offer a dedicated career track. If you're successful on it, you'd be surprised how few people sign up these days for it.
Yeah. I was just curious, because like I said, a lot of people have to go through internships in order to get certain licenses, so.
Right, and we actively recruit, and we do post for our public works intern positions, although we've had a hard time filling those positions.